This is a brief and hopefully concise update relating to our technical understanding of certain aspects of the Bible, especially in relation to the first few chapters. I hope it is of some value to someone. Before beginning on the biblical text, it may be helpful to settle a question. This question is the question of time, the question of the meaning of the day, especially the day of Genesis chapter 1. If we have a look at the screen, we see that according to the Bible, the meaning of day, as is given to us in the Scriptures, clearly tells us that the day of Genesis 1 was a day in the sight of God as distinct from the days that we as humans experience in terms of time. God, of course, being eternal or timeless, and we as humans living in the time dimension, in a temporal dimension of time and space. It is therefore logical to deduce that the time of the days of Genesis 1 could be any time at all in terms of our temporal dimension, and we can learn about the length of those days by scientific investigation. We shall now proceed through the first few chapters of the Bible, or at least we'll start at chapter 1 and we'll see how we go. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. That says it all. Heaven and earth refers to the entire space-time dimension. It is possible to deduce from the Bible that time began and time shall end. In the book of Revelation, near the end of the Bible, it actually says, "And time shall be no more." Just as science or physics has deduced that the entire universe or cosmos which we experience must have begun, and before it began there was no time and no thing, so the Bible in effect says the same. Time and space began, and time shall end. And the earth was without form and void. If you're a human being, it was without form and void. If you were looking at it with your own eyes, it doesn't tell us what it looked like in the divine plan and purpose at this stage. But you see the perfect blackness that is there on the screen. If you had been there at that stage and had been able to look at the universe, including what was to become the earth, that's all you would have seen, total blackness, without form and void. Exactly what it means. Physics tells us that at this early stage in the creation and the revelation of the universe, of the cosmos, nothing would have been visible to the human eye. All matter was so compact and so full of energy that it would have been opaque, unable to be seen into, or it may even have been invisible. The phenomenally compact, intense energy that was the embryonic cosmos was initially so compact and so intense that it could not even emit light. We learned that in the previous verse. The earth was without form and void. It couldn't even be seen. But now, as the universe expanded, light was able to shine. And when the light broke forth, it would have brilliantly illuminated that universe. And God said, "Let there be a firmament." It's there on the screen. The meaning of firmament, strangely enough, is best expressed by the word expansion or expanse. There is a subtle differentiation of meaning here. If you look at verse 6, and God said, "Let there be a firmament," it is a firmament or a general firmament or expansion. So read for a firmament in verse 6, a generalized expansion or space, or the beginnings of outer space. Remember, we have an expanding universe. Space has begun to become a feature of this now illuminated, expanding universe. But now look again at verse 6. And God said, "Let there be a firmament, a generalized expansion, in the midst of the waters." Waters, of course, means something that doesn't have definite visible structure. It doesn't simply refer to water as we know it. It can actually refer to fragmented solids. But here in the midst of these expanding waters or formative elements, in the midst of this mass of energy that is becoming matter, energy and matter are interchangeable, in the midst of this universe of energy come matter, now beginning to expand and, as it were, synthesize into something more that we can understand as matter, there comes this expansion, a firmament, a generalized expansion or space in the midst of the waters. But now look at the second half of verse 6. It says, "And let it," that is, let this expansion or this space, let outer space divide waters, that is, unformed simple matter, from waters, more unformed simple matter. So in verse 6 it is actually saying, it is referring, I should say, to the beginnings of space or outer space, and that this was an expansionary process in the midst of the universe, so that the whole universe was expanding at the same time. And then it says, let it specifically divide one set of materials or waters from another. Let it divide waters from waters. So not only do we have the beginnings of space in an expanding universe here, we also have the beginning of aggregation of formative matter into clumps. Let it divide matter or unformed matter from unformed matter. It may be informative at this stage to have a look at this remarkable visual here. It looks like an egg that someone's thrown some paint at. Isn't physics wonderful? Now that's a computer simulation of the expanding universe, I take it, not all that long after the so-called Big Bang, or the point of creation. It's a indicator of clumping of energy, even though it's actually a measurement of background radiation. It is an indicator of what might have been going on in that early universe as matter began to clump, as the firmament, as the expansion, as space began to divide materials, unformed material from unformed materials. It's a remarkable, this remarkable computer simulated egg, or whatever it is, brings us back to verse 7. We have to keep up with this expanding universe. And God made the firmament. Note, the firmament, specific. Not a or a general expansion, but the firmament, the expanse above our heads. The proper meaning of firmament is that which may be seen if you stand on the ground and look upwards. So the firmament, in the meaning of the firmament, the specific firmament or the sky, it takes in a bird flying just above one's head, and it goes right out and it takes in the most distant stars. Now God made the firmament, the sky, the expanse around the earth, and divided the waters which were under the expanse from the waters which were above this expanse, and it was so. So now we have got to one of those specific clumps of matter which we saw in the egg, and that specific clump of matter or waters is now divided by another process of division, and that division is what we come to know as our sky. Remarkable. We have attempted to do a mock-up of the expanding universe here to assist in our understanding of the sequence or the unrolling process involved, the evolution, so to speak. In a moment we might enlist young Archimedes to help us with the text. There is just one technical point there to note. The matter that, so in a sense, synthesized out of the energy was simple matter. The elements tended to be the simple light elements such as hydrogen and helium. These are the elements that have very few subatomic particles within their atoms. The formation of the heavier elements required the tremendous pressure or smelting process, if you like, of collapsing stars and galaxies. And thus it wasn't until late in the history of the universe that planets and objects such as our solar system were formed, once the heavier elements had been processed. I will now hand over to young Archimedes to assist us with the text of this drawing.
From almost infinitely small seed to almost infinitely great branches, this is the story of our universe. The invisible seed, or embryo, pure energy, too compact to emit light, an ocean of energy and formative matter, at first dark, but then beginning to display light. Clouds of simple gases. First stars and proto-galaxies. Novae produce heavy elements, and then the modern universe. This all occurred in 15,000 million years.